they're still worth like tens of billions of dollars, apps that you have never seen before. So it's just insane the valuations that you have on these dating apps. And the second thing is like finance apps, apps that make you more money. If I think about like, it's like what my co-founder said, it makes sense because it's always about like what people want to do, like they want to have a, date someone, go on a date or something, or make more money.
Cash flow? Cash flow? Did you clear your cash flow?
I noticed you have on your LinkedIn profile growth mentor or a business mentor at Growth Mentor. So I actually met Fodi, I think is how he says his name. I met him like years and years ago when he was building
Oh,
Growth
nice.
Mentor. He was reaching out to me and like bouncing the prototypes and the UI screens off of me on that one. And it's so awesome. Like it seems like that community's built up really big. Is that something that you're pretty, active in?
So I help a little bit with, the process of, helping other folks. I just wanted in the beginning to, uh, to give a little bit back because when I was, starting the business, we had a lot of mentors and it was really hard for me to find them. Like it was always like something like of a pain, trying to find them and everything. I couldn't really like when I knew someone that could help me, like because of a community or even like a startup hub or something, I would ask them for time, but then I felt like maybe I should pay yours for something. Like I'm using your time and you are like the super CEO or something, So it was always weird and everything. And I just wanted to be part of something to help back and to give a little bit of feedback. Sometimes I can help, sometimes I cannot. Like mentorship is not always about giving you the right answers. Sometimes about driving you a little bit crazier, right? So you never know what's gonna be. But I thought I applied there. So I part of that. I got an invitation from him to join, and also I joined another one called Plato, I think. So they all work similarly, I think, different networks just, but it's a tough business model, I have to say. I don't know how they figure it out, but I think it's a tough business model for them, at least, how to build that community.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's dive in here. The main business you're working on now is InEvent, which is an events platform. I think you guys started back in 2018, so pre-pandemic. Obviously, it was back then. Probably I would have to imagine mostly in-person events, and then with the pandemic, you guys, of course, pivoted and moved into hybrid and virtual, and now we're back to we're past, it seems like we're pretty much past the pandemic at this point. So we're back to in person again. So would love to hear your journey. You're a Y Combinator grad, right? You guys went through the YC program with InEvent. So yeah, I'd love to dive into that. Would love to kind of hear what inspired you guys to build this business and also what was it like to be at YC?
Yeah, I mean, we actually had the first idea for the business 2012. That's when we got started. And at the time, we just wanted to build something together. I was in college and trying to find different co-founders. So basically, like that was the time where we were just handing out, equity stakes in the company, like out of nowhere. People would come to me, when like because I started the idea and I started pitching this to other people, around college. So I would say like, I have this startup, we're doing events or so, or we're doing also other ideas. Would like to be part of it. And then people would say, yeah, I want to do that. I can do design. I'm like, yeah, now you're a founder as well. Like here, take 10% of the company. I used to do that, like the very early ages.
How many founders do you have with you?
I think we had 9 or 10 founders.
Wow. Are you
Yeah,
the
yeah, it
biggest
was.
shareholder in the company or?
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was tough because, some people would join for like 2 days and then they're like, oh, I left. And I'm like, I'm going to take your equity back. Like we didn't even issue something, but those were the first days. And then, starting a business is really tough because everything's expensive, but customers want to pay as little as possible, right? And you don't have a product, so you cannot charge something like you cannot charge much for a product because it's worth nothing. Like you've been working on this for like 1 month, so how are you gonna do that? So, a lot of things go into the financial reasons why people left, and we had a really tough time getting started because we had no experience, like we knew nothing about business. First customer that we had was 8 months later, after we started the business. And then the second customer came 16 months later, 16 to 17. So it took a lot of time to find the first two customers. And we just kept building the business.
What were you
over.
doing at that time to find customers? Like, was it like, cold outreach? Was it, paid ads, or how were you attracting those first early customers?
Yeah, we were just doing cold outreaches. Like I would sit on the university, like there was a cold room. They called this cold storage where people would go to do their presentations, like for to apply for something and etc. So there was this room, and then there was like something attached to it. So I'll go there and stay there calling people using Skype every single day. Skype was the thing at the time. There was no Google Meet or Zoom or any other, app to call people, out on the App
You were
Store or
just
anything like
literally
that.
cold calling phone numbers using Skype.
Yeah, just Skype them. Yeah, yeah. And I'll put some credits. I had like $5 a day or so, and I'll just call them and see what was the reaction. Um, so we were doing that, and then like we found for customers. So what we do is that we would visit them. Like some of them say like, I have an agency. We have this event that's going to be a wellness event or whatever, and some of them, like every 100 times that we heard a no, sometimes someone will say yes for a visit. So we'll go there in person and show them the mobile app that we had at the time. And basically the business grew out of that. So like after 4 or 5 years doing that, like we already had maybe 5 or 6 employees, within the company. Which was like very like small at the time, after 5 years of doing that. But we were also very young. So for us it was fun. Like we're doing these trade shows, going there, building the trade shows, everything. Um, so what we decided in 2018 was like, we need to scale this, we need to go from, like just selling $100,000 a year to maybe, becoming more like $1 million a go. And the first step that we had, like, let's apply to a bunch of accelerators, let's apply to Y Combinator, Techstars, 500 startups, and see what they're going to say. So we already had the software, the software was for processing payments and, allowing them to sell tickets and doing check-in. So we go to like the badge, we had the hardware, so you just show your QR code and you print a badge for you. So we had developed all of those in-house. And then we went there to all these accelerator programs, and it's funny, right? Because you always think that the largest program, which is Y Combinator, is going to be the first one to reject you, right? Like that's what you think, something wrong is going to happen here. Like we're going to give you out of this and we're going to kill the idea very quickly. And they were the first one to say like, yes, we'd like to interview you. Right. So it's funny like that. Maybe they're the best because they're always quicker than everybody else to make decisions and be the first one to say like, yes, we want you guys to be here with us. So it's actually a funny story. Like we got there to the interview. They said, like you guys sit here, like we're going to have an interview. The interview lasts for 10 minutes. For the first 8 minutes, they ask questions and everything. We answered them very quickly. And then they say, we're done. And we're like, oh, our business is so boring. Like they didn't have even 10 minutes of questions to ask us. So we just we just got expelled from the room. Like we're like, oh, it's done. Let's go back from that interview was in California, right? In Mountain View, where we have the office, the Y Combinator office. So he said, let's not even wait, let's go home already, because of course we're not selected for this. And it passes a few hours, it's like 5 or 6 p.m. We're like, they did interview a lot of people, we're out already. And let's go to Walmart and let's keep building the business and everything. So we're at Walmart and then they call us and they said, hey guys and everything, like we're going through your info and everything. And we thought you guys built so much product in the last few years. We couldn't believe it, and everything. So, but we decided to accept, we decided to, invite you to join the program, like Y Combinator. And we're like, are you sure? Like, there's that not, like, we don't understand what's going on. And they said, no, like, we like to invite you. And then, like, I went in negotiation mode. I'm like, okay, so maybe I'm going to think about it. Maybe I should go and think if Techstars also wants to negotiate the equity or something. And the guy said, like, that's not the way this should go. Like, you should say yes right now, and get this approved. And then we were like, awesome, like, yes. And then we started screaming at Walmart, like that's the first time I still remember, like, we're still not allowed to go back to that Walmart because we started screaming so loud and, and just running around that people thought.
They escort you out. You're like screaming, like, "Yeah, we're in YC," and then
we were
the
trespassing or
security guard
something.
comes
Yeah,
and
like,
kicks you out.
it was a very emotional thing because we applied to YC, 3 times. The first time was 2012, like when we had the very first idea. Then we applied 2014 when we had a very few, like we had 2 clients. So we said, let's apply there and see what they're going to say. And we applied back in 2018, 19, and then we got accepted. So some founders think, like it's, you apply once and if it's yes or no. And for us, it was a 5-year journey, like we're waiting for this for a long time.
Wow. Did you get to meet Sam Altman at all, or he wasn't there when you were there?
He was not there at the time. So we met with Paul Bouquet, which is the founder of Gmail. We met also with Brad Flora, which is an upcoming partner, part of the program. We also met with Michael Seibel, like, which was like the main person there and everything. And then we also met with other investors that were not part of the YC at the time, but now have joined. So, for example, we met with, which is something like Gary Tan, for example, and Ohanian, which are the founders of Reddit. Like, they were investing at the time. We met with them also there. Well, we went to their office. Everything is surreal, right? Because we were there and they're thinking, like, you found Reddit. Like, why are you talking to me? Like, like it still makes no sense. I mean, like, we're building these businesses and like people, like the largest internet companies in the world, they want to talk to us. So,
and at the time though, you were still like $100,000 ARR, and you're in the same room with Alexis Ohanian talking about how to build this thing up. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So, it's an interesting fact, how like these, top CEOs, top founders, they appreciate YC so much, because they see the value there. And after you grow the business, you really want to pay that back because, at the time we were really small, and today we're still a small company. Like, we only have 150 employees, like, it's not that we are, on the thousands or, like Airbnb or so kind of style where they have 10,000 employees or 50,000 employees. We're still a very small company. So, but like they really see the value of being early stage and the idea of the idea can get a lot of value and it can grow that very quickly. So it was really cool. Yeah,
it's awesome. So would you do YC again with another startup if you built a new company?
Yes, I mean, YC is great. Like they understand really well the process to trigger an idea to be something moving forward, like not just like a waiting process of, because that's the challenge, right? Like when you have the idea, you gotta act on it, right? You gotta transform this into business, that's going to be measurable, and you're going to be able to track, new customers, new active users, or new revenue or whatever, or customer renewals. Like, you gotta have a metric on this. And those are really boring things, honestly. Like, dealing with customer issues, like customers are really not looking for, like the coolest thing all the time. Sometimes, especially B2B businesses, they just have a problem. It usually is a boring problem to solve, and they just want a solution that's going to address that. Even if you have like a super cool tech that's going to work on that, you still have to go through the fundamentals, right? Which is customer support, like how you're going to implement the contracts, all these legal stuff. So it's usually a process that the founders usually skip back and they say, yeah, like we'd rather stay with the cool stuff, meeting with all these, amazing founders that, are super famous or trying to raise money in doing those things. So they don't really click in on the boring kind of things. And they don't go to the next phase. So YC is really focused on that. Like, you got to do those things. Like, you got to be able to identify what are the metrics and be able to work on them and show progress today. That's how you're gonna build a business. You're not gonna build a business by raising, $1 billion. You're gonna build a business by having 1 billion customers. So that's basically the thought process that they have, and they know how to influence you to really show progress every week on your customers and everything.
Well, so many founders celebrate raising a round more than they celebrate closing a deal.
Well,
which
I think
is
it's complicated. Yeah.
yeah,
I
like
think the
closing a deal,
main,
getting a customer, that's like the real success. Like getting money into your bank account, that's like the real success when your product's working and you have a consistent, you built something, you know how to market and sell it, you know how to attract customers, you know how to take them through a buying journey, and then they, sign up, they sign the contract, they write a check, or they, put in their credit card, and then, doing that on repeat. Like that's what a
yeah,
business is. And
exactly.
it's often like celebrated more. Like you hear it more in the tabloids or in like the TechCrunch, publications out there that say, "Oh, ABC startup just raised $100 million C round" or
Yeah.
something, and it's like that's what gets celebrated more than this company just sold a $200,000 contract.
Yeah. I mean, I think the process is the media needs to have a clear public metric to evaluate different businesses, like how do they compare? So revenue is really tough, like to compare, like how you're going to compare different businesses. One may not have revenue, like there are big companies that they still have revenue and they're worth, billions of dollars. So what's the only metric that I think that's common among all these companies is the valuation. And the most clear way to calculate valuation is basically a multiple of what your largest investor invested on your company, right? So that's why I think everyone is really attached to how much money you raise, because that provides a very clear valuation. Even YC does that. Like they say it's not the best metric, but that's the only metric that they have. How to evaluate the top YC companies. It's basically a multiple of the valuation that they have. So companies that are bootstrapped, usually they struggle with this because there is no clear way to measure their valuation. I know, for example, if you have $5 million in revenue, how much are you worth? $10 million or $3 billion? Like that's a multiple that you have to define if you have not raised any money internally. But if there is an investor that agreed on a valuation and put, like $10 million on your business, that's a very clear indication of how much your business is worth, right? So
Well, there's metrics for that. I mean, like a B2B SaaS company, let's take the $5 million example. A B2B SaaS company typically values on like a multiple of revenue. So, it could be
yeah,
anywhere, the last couple of years, it was really high multiples. It's come down a lot, but, I would guess somewhere like between 4x and like 8x revenue is a valuation. So let's say it's like 5x revenue. They've got $5 million in revenue, then they're
yeah.
$25 million valuation based on based on those metrics.
Yeah, I understand that, but those numbers are not attractive as the option to raise, venture capital. Because venture capital, for example, for giving our own example, like our multiple at the time during YC was 60x, 62x.
60x, that's insane.
Yeah, yeah, and that's way more attractive. That's what I'm saying. Like I rather not stick with those 5x. Like I want to go to 62. Like it's a way to prove the business, and I'd rather be worth 62x our money than 5x. So
But when it was
I,
60x, what was your revenue at the time?
uh, I think it was like $2 million or so. I think the
Oh
business,
wow, okay.
yeah, the business was worth like $150 million. So that
That's
was
an
the
incredible valuation. Yeah.
yeah. So and we were not even the closest like thing. Like if you look at other companies like Figma or like they got acquired by Adobe or so, I think the valuation, the multiple that they were having was like 300x, 200x. So those numbers, when you go like to venture capital markets, they just it's so more attractive than 5x, which is the standard, SaaS valuation or so, that you're just driven to like, let's get into that game, let's get into the game of trying to raise money because I want to be worth like $1 billion today, not 5 years from now or so.
Wow. Did you ever do a secondary with your business or any? Actually, did you raise money at all with InEvent
We
or?
raised, yeah, we raised about $5 million, yeah, and
Okay. How many rounds? Is that one round or multiple?
one round only. Yeah, it was a seed stage part of YC. So you do YC and then you have a demo day, and then it's really fuzzy the process after that. Like because sometimes I've seen people raise $3 million that day. Like you have the demo day today, and then tomorrow you already have 3 million, and it's your round is closed. But sometimes we have founders like ours, like we took us 1.5 years post demo day to close the round, so we worked a little bit on that, and there were some pivots and everything. But that's basically one round that we did post YC, so which really helped a lot. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But that's impressive though. Like to me, all right, so you raised a seed round, that's cool. And then you became, you grew a business. Like you focused on business fundamentals after your seed round and took a $5 million seed round. You can't hire 150 employees on $5 million. So you
Yeah.
have to go and actually build a real business to get to 150 employees. So you took that seed round and turned it into a real business, which is like, to me, that's really awesome. You kind of took the best of both worlds. Like you did like the VC, capital injection in the beginning, and then quickly, instead of trying to focus on, all right, we got our seed round, so let's, spend some money and then in 6 months go out and try to raise an A rounds. You didn't do that. You went for, all right, we got our seed round. How do we turn this $5 million into a profitable business that we can scale? And so I really admire that, to be honest.
Nice, cool. But one thing that we thought about venture capital is that we didn't really need the money. Like the $5 million, like it was not the main driver, like getting the 5 million specifically. What we really wanted was the credibility from the investors. I think that's really key because we specifically work with companies that are public traded and government entities and everyone. And the process to get certified, and get approved, sometimes they ask, who invested on you guys, from who you have raised money. So that's a very key question. And sometimes you can say, look, I've been trading for, multiple years. We have multiple clients and everything, but we didn't have multiple clients at the time because we're just starting. And it's just tough, customers don't believe you like in the beginning because you have no references. So how do you work through that? One way is basically to raise money from a very credible investor and you say, look, this company that also invested on, in Airbnb, Stripe and all these things, they also invested in us. So we are a credible company and the customer really trusts you on there. So that's just a key thing like that people can think about when they're like, I want to start a business, but I'm young and I have no references at all in my life. Like, what can I do? So that's a way to avoid and overcome that problem. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So what's like a typical customer for you guys? You mentioned some governments or B2B. Are you going after these big higher value contracts, or are you guys more of like a product led growth, SMB product, or is it both?
Well, I think product led is a little bit tough for us because when you host an event, when you host a meeting, or when you're coming up with those implementations, the product led approach, it's sometimes tough. Like our customers never do a trial. In the beginning, the process, they never go there and do a self trial on the website. They don't click sign up or anything like that. They may want to do a trial later, after we had a discovery call, after we got in touch with them, after we did multiple demos. They may say, like, now I want to try the product a little bit because I just want to see that, it works, it exists and everything. But we first have to do all this outbound approach and then maybe capture the leads. Also, inbound works well. Like we put the forms on our website and customers reach out to us and we book demos. So that helps a lot as well. But we have always been focused on like larger organizations, at least 500 employees or so. We're hosting at least events with 500 people or more. And we help them book those. And we address that. Usually there is a very traditional, straightforward process, which is, we book a call, there's a discovery call, we learn about you, we provide then schedule a demo, and then we demonstrate the product based on your requirements. And then we move forward to, maybe a contract or getting started, but there is an implementation plan. We have a person that works with you. So it's a very traditional thing that we do that clients require as well. And I think this formality, it's very common among larger companies. They want to do a formal implementation plan, get legal to work on the contract and all those things. It's a lot of resources, like it takes a lot of time. So the money got to be worth, what the deal is requiring. You cannot charge, $3,000 on a deal that's going to take you a full legal review. It doesn't make sense financially. So since our clients always require that, we always have to be charging, like at least 5 digits, at least to get started. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a software services company, so we do like product development for companies, and that's you just as exactly described our sales process. And most of our deals are six, sometimes seven-figure deals, but it's very time consuming. Like you have to spend a lot of time going out and finding the right prospects, getting the right messaging, getting the right inbound funnels, so getting the right people into the conversation with you. And then you go through like multiple stages of meetings, creating the solution, building the value. And then, once you do win the deal, or once you do get the verbal, like the interest, my director of business development at Curotech, my business, he calls the lawyers the sales prevention team, the SPT. So he's like, all right, the contract's with SPT, so we'll see if the deal falls through or not.
Like contracts should be just a podcast, because contracts are so tough, sometimes to find a solution. Customers want specific things and you got to charge more because of that. And, and it really is a sales prevention process, because people just want to change sometimes things, to protect themselves out of nowhere. And it drives more. You need to charge more. And then like people are not like, we're not going to do business together unless you take the risk. So it's after the legal review, I'm usually, like thinking that the contract's going to go through, but after that, like before that, I'm like, that's not going to work so well. So
I don't know if you're like me, but like I'm not a lawyer. I never went to law school. I don't study this stuff.
Yeah.
I've been involved in so many deals, so many MSAs, whatever, like all these different contracts, employment contracts, all sorts of stuff, acquisition, M&A stuff, asset purchases, operating agreements, all this stuff. I've done so many contracts that I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of law at this point, like contract law.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. Like sometimes I feel like we send in an MSA or something to a client, and it's just like their legal team just has to go and make changes just because it's what they do. It's not because they actually need the changes, but they just want to like change things.
Yeah.
And then the lawyers just go back and forth, and then they'll just go back and forth on words that make no difference and just like tweak little tiny sentences. They'll add like commas and stuff. And and this is like what happens for like a week. It goes back and forth between the lawyers, and it just blows my mind sometimes. Like me and you, like we're business guys. We just want to get the deal done, move on, deliver, do a good job, secure the customer long term on goodwill, and then go and do that again with another customer. And and I think we think differently than like a general counsel lawyer would think. It's interesting to see it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like the main thing for me, like when I'm reviewing a contract that, like someone assigns to me or I have to sign is I'm just thinking about the liability. I think that's the main thing, like usually on contracts, which is what's going to happen, if that contract, has any problems at all, like I think that's the main thing because everything else is basically like you providing value for the customer, right? So if they want to change something, you're like, you need to comply with those regulations, or you need to deploy the product by certain dates, or like this is basically like customer requests that you need to fulfill. Like basically like you need to request this to be earlier. Like it's okay, we charge you more a little bit, but that can be done. So that's not a problem. The only thing that really gets to be critical is the liability. Like if something goes wrong, what's going to be the bill that's going to come out of that. So identification as well, but everything else, and that's not legal device, just to say I'm not a lawyer as well. Yeah, I always have to say that this is not legal device, but that's what I always think when I'm reviewing the contracts about those key terms and everything. Yeah. So, but you said something really interesting. Like it seems like we now have a general understanding of the law, and then it actually drives a few interesting things because now you realize that you can actually understand more about the law in general, not just related to business contracts, right? So like when I'm something unrelated, like when I'm traveling or when I'm in an airplane, and like what are the passenger rights, So since we have so much experience understanding like legal terms as a whole, like at least for me, I don't have difficulty to go through like passenger rights and read them, and be like, oh, so these are my rights, I understand them, and I feel that I understand them better than like someone else, because I'm reading so many contracts usually that I'm like, this is actually easier for me to understand and to exert my rights than everybody else. So it's a benefit, like I think you get a general knowledge of, how society works and everything by having to review all these contracts usually. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I think, this was my perception before I got, before I became a CEO and started to do all this, CEO stuff like contracts. I used to just think of the law as like very black and white, and it was just you either were breaking the law or you're not breaking the law, and it's just, it's like it's black or white, it's on or off, it's binary. And what I learned, and this like shaped my perception of the entire world in general, is that everything is negotiable, everything is fluid, everything is like there's no black and white, there's a million shades of gray in between. And like it's not, something's not good or bad, it's not true or false. There's like negotiation and wiggle room and everything. And you also, even if you think you have a perfect contract, it's not actually known until it gets tested. And the way it gets tested is that it gets presented in court to a judge and a jury, and then they're just people. They decide what they think. Like, so it's somebody else's opinion. So like the contract itself is like this fluid document that ultimately becomes a known, like the quality and the performance of the contract itself becomes known when it gets tested in essentially a legal battle. And the outcome is purely determined by people's opinions. And
Exactly.
and their understanding of the law, which is also a fluid,
It's also fluid. Yeah.
non-binary thing as well. So it's just, and then when you start to realize this, you realize the entire world works that way. And I think about it, it's like, I feel like most people, people think there's like, politicians and CEOs and executives and like these business, these world leaders and business leaders, they all have it all figured out. But like, I think actually nobody, like, I think nobody knows in the grand scheme of things, like the grand scheme of knowledge, human knowledge and then, universe knowledge. Nobody really knows anything. Like we know such a small fraction, like our knowledge is like the size of our Earth in the universe. And then when you realize that and realize we're all just operating in life with that limited baseline, it's like it changes my perspective on just how things work. And I always write things down. I have like hundreds of Notion docs where I just like write down concepts and ideas. And I wrote something down the other day. I wrote down that the two main types of people in this world, there's those that see the world as rigid and binary, and those that see the world as fluid and malleable. Mm-hmm. And so like this legal stuff, it kind of opens you up into that way of like malleable, fluid thinking.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like it's something that there is no final say or anything. Even like if you've done something really wrong, like it's fluid. Like it's never clear. And one thing that also changed my perception is that I thought of lawyers as like, I go to a lawyer because I want them to do something. Look, I have this problem. I pay you, you solve my problem. I always thought of them as like a superior entity that's going to be able to, just go there, talk to people, and then like my problem is solved. And that's not really that. Like I think lawyers are just like computer programmers, like because I'm a computer programmer, they just have this book, like which is basically the Constitution, all the codes that are attached to it. And those are the tools, each law is basically a tool, right? So they just need to know how to apply it, in our favor, right? But that's it. Like they're not basically judging us or anything. Like just saying, look, the problem that you have, there is this tool here that this Bill of Rights that allows you to have this right. So like for your problem, let's apply this tool, and that's why you're gonna win it. Like, and understanding of the tools, like understanding what's written there on the tool, I think that's where it comes like the knowledge of like, oh, so the way that this is written can also be applied to something else that we never thought about before. So that's the interesting part, is understanding how can you get a tool that's not very clear, written and apply this to something else, right? So
yeah, that's cool. I totally agree with you on that. I love that analogy of like the computer programmer. And then like running like the contract is your application, and then you have to run it in production and see if it works or not.
Exactly.
I like that.
I think it's the same. Yeah.
All right, I want to explore something with you. Have you ever done any consumer products or consumer businesses before?
Well, when we got started and we were that ideation phase, in college and everything, we had like 7 or 8 ideas at the time. So all of them were consumer, B2C, and we had like so many. We had this idea to have a restaurant app that basically you order before you get to the restaurant. So you're going to the restaurant and you're like, I already know what I'm going to order. So why do I have to get there, tell the waiter or something what I want, wait 30 minutes and then get that? So since it's going to be 30 minutes there, I already order when I leave my house. And then when I get there, it's already cooked, so I can just eat that. So that was an idea that we had. Then we had another app to drink water. That was also cool.
To remind you to drink water.
Yeah, it just like pops and it's like a wellness app at the time.
What was it
And
called?
then,
I might have used that one time.
no, it never like we had this, but then like it didn't work, so we deleted this from the App Store.
I
Like
had
all
an app
random
at one
ideas.
point that reminded me because I just
Yeah.
like I was coding a lot back then, so I just get in a zone and I'll just code for like 16 hours straight, and then I'll realize after like 8 hours that I didn't drink a single sip of water and I have to go to the
Yeah,
bathroom really bad. And then it's
yeah,
like, oh crap. But then it's like I don't want to stop. So then I code for another hour. And then it's like, all right, finally I'll get up and then I'll like go. And then I completely lose my flow state. And then I have to come back and
yeah. It's tough. Like today I carry like 3 of those, like when I'm around. So at least, like with all this swag stuff with events, I got like a lot of these. So that's good because otherwise I'll have the same problem, like it'll be like hours, and like I didn't drink something and like, it's crazy, which is also something weird, like, because when you need to go to the bathroom, you get a real state of what is your health right now in real time. That's something weird, right? If you think about it, like, you should always have, something that is clear as water. That's basically what you want to have, for your health. So if something is not clear as water, like it's probably something that you're not drinking water enough. So you should like get a warning. It's like getting a blood test and getting back with like a NAF, like you're rated a NAF right now. Like you should just drink water, and because your body telling you that something's not right. So that's something that I use as well. Is like, an indication of, how I'm treating my health. But back to what we were talking about, we were
so I
talking,
want to show you something I just saw, but on
yeah,
that
with the consumer
bathroom
ideas here.
topic. So this will be a funny episode. We're getting deep into bathroom habits, but I
Yeah,
saw a startup recently. They're a toilet, but they have like it's a smart toilet that does like tests. So when you use the bathroom, it will like test, and then send you health reports to an app. It'll say like, all right, we just did an analysis, and here's like you're dehydrated a little bit, you're deficient in these minerals or something. So it's like real time feedback, literally, like you
yeah,
said, but it's like data driven like app feedback. I don't know how good their tests are or accurate, or how much of how many tests they do that are important, but that one was really I forget what the company's called. I'll have to look that up and figure it out. But so I'm mostly a B2B guy as well. I don't really do much in the
yeah,
D2C or consumer space, but I saw this company that just came out recently. I'm going to share my screen. It's blowing my mind. So you come to the website and it says, "Are you single?"
yeah,
And if you press no, then it says this product is just for single people who are in a position to meet other people. But if you say yes, it takes you into the app, and it's not even really clear what it is, but it's like it's getting like publicity everywhere. So it says this is not a dating app. It's a ring. So if you scroll down, it's this like teal ring,
yeah,
and it's supposed to be a ring that indicates to other people that you're single and that you're looking to date and meet somebody. So it's like, I don't know how much it costs to make it, but it's probably like 10 cents. They probably do it like, in
yeah,
China or
probably.
Taiwan or something. So it's like 10 cents or whatever, 20 cents. They've got, maybe like $1 at most with shipping and everything and import taxes. I don't know, but it's like probably super cheap to manufacture and import this. And then they're selling it for $25. And it's like a no tech business. Like they're doing marketing and customer
Yeah,
acquisition as if they're a tech business. They're doing like really great PR. They're doing like really great, they're crushing it on Facebook ads and, social and YouTube and all that stuff. But it's just, it's so simple. It's like the most simple product. It kind of reminds me of Liquid Death, the water, if you're familiar with that.
Liquid Death, I
I
think was
actually have a
like
can
the
here.
branding, right? Like the water was famous because of the branding itself, not
Yeah, so Liquid Death is I have it up on my camera. It's water. It's just
yeah.
water in a can. It's literally like there's nothing
Oh yeah,
innovative.
that looks like a beer, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a beer, and then they have funny marketing. Like it'll says like Liquid Death, it murders your thirst.
Yeah,
Drinking water
really
from the
cool.
Alps. They have like funny stuff on the can, so it's like so they're just like really good marketing. So it's like non-tech businesses that have really good marketing. Another one I saw was another water company recently. It's called Free Water. I think it's freewater.com or .org or something like that.
Yeah,
Well, the production team will look it up and put it in the show notes here. But it's uh, it's like free water, and you can go online and order free cases of water. But they just have a bunch of advertisements on the bottles. So they have like, brands, like Nike or, whatever, like different companies, will pay to put their logos all over the bottle.
yeah.
So like some of this stuff, man, blows my mind. Like the creativity, like us B2B guys, like we're out there like figuring out business problems. We're, putting data behind it. We're coming up with metrics, we're optimize. We're helping try to figure out how to optimize. The business pays us $100, we save them $1,000. Like we're trying to figure out like real business metrics, and then scale up a business out of a fundamental solution. But some of these consumer products are just like they blow my mind how simple they are. There's like no innovation. It's just pure marketing. It's like pure
Yeah.
marketing and psychology. It blows my mind sometimes. Have you seen
Yeah.
anything like that, or any just like crazy consumer product companies that just blow your mind?
Yeah, like I think the two key areas that I like B2C that I think about that can be really profitable because there are ideas that I think about market segmentation a lot, like B2B or B2C, whatever. But I think about, the segment that the idea is going to operate in. I think that's really, really key when you're going to build a company on how much that company is going to be worth in the future. Um, because there are areas, they're very competitive and they don't pay a lot, and there are no known exits of any companies, in that space. And then there are areas that really like fun with ideas, with new businesses and like huge valuations or so. So I think market is really key. No matter how good you are as a founder, if you go to a business that the area is not good, that really matters, from in my opinion. So one area that I have very strong, like that I'm very like into the valuation thing is going to be like dating apps. I think dating apps are crazy, how much money they're worth, it's insane. And you launch a new app and they're worth you a lot of money. So I think if you get just like the largest one, I think is Tinder. Like Tinder is worth $42 billion,
Holy
and
crap! Wow.
it's basically an app to put that together. And then if you get like other companies, they're still in that space coming together, like they're still worth like tens of billions of dollars, apps that you have never seen before. So um it's just like it's just insane the valuations that you have on these dating apps. And the second thing is like finance apps, apps that make you more money. And if I think about like it's like what my co-founder said, it makes sense because it's always about like what people want to do, like they want to have a, date someone, go on a date or something, or make more money. That's what, it's a strong desire of people. Like when you wake up every morning, like what are you thinking about? Oh, I want to go out with this woman, with this guy, whatever, or you want to make more money, either to go out with someone. So these are like key things, key areas that I've seen there. And then there are so many different, app ideas within those, some of them in the financial state, like people get too innovative, it becomes a fraud, right? We have seen this before a couple of times. But yeah, like I really focus on those two spaces when I'm like thinking about ideas of how can we come up with those. I think also like in the financial state, you can always create like segmentations within those markets. So for example, you can say right now, which is like Tinder for the LGBT community, right? Or you can go, for example, and get like a financial app built for teenagers, or you can get a financial app built for Latinos, right? There isn't a financial app that I've seen the other day. It's basically like banking for Latinos because the app is all in Spanish and operates in the US, but like the app is in Spanish, like the support is in Spanish and everything. And these guys are worth like $8 billion already. just because they have like Wells Fargo Spanish version, That's
Yeah, I've
basically
seen
it.
that a lot. I've seen a lot of that where like, there's all
Yeah.
these private equities that just do in new markets, like they'll do in Eastern Europe or Latin America or Australia or whatever. They'll just do like successful
Mhm.
companies in the US and just like copy and paste it. Like you ever see the Silicon Valley show on HBO with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Jin Yang? And there's that one episode where he's
It's
like on the whiteboard and he's like talking about like he's writing down all his ideas to build new companies and he's like on the list of all his ideas, it was like China Facebook, China YouTube, China Pied Piper. And it was just like all it's just
China
all
Pied
these like
Piper.
companies
Yeah.
listed, but like in China, basically.
Yeah, so I think finding that regional market is worthwhile. Like one other idea that exploded at the time, like at the same time of Pied Piper, like the sitcom, it was Uber, Uber for different locations. So if you travel like to any other place outside of America, there is Uber, but there is like the other local solution. So if you go like to India, there's a solution. China is another one. Like Philippines is another one. Like South America is another one because people are just copying this Uber idea and implementing locally. So it's just insane. Like you can just copycat someone and it works. So
Yeah, yeah. The thing you said earlier, I don't know if you did it intentionally, but you mentioned finance apps and dating apps, and those are like the two closest things to like human fundamental desires, like
yeah,
reproduction and acquiring resources. Like those are two things that are like at the lowest level of like our, some of our like lowest level desires, which is really interesting that these, and that's like what this pairing app that or this pairing ring thing that I showed you, this startup.
yeah,
They're literally just selling a small piece of rubber. Like you can go on Alibaba and order that for $1.
yeah,
But and
exactly.
there's already like other companies that do it, like the silicone rings for like wedding bands, but working out, so that you don't like hurt your skin or something if you're using a barbell. And those companies, like they're interesting. They probably have good multiples and good valuations and good revenue, but they're probably nowhere near, they didn't grow nearly as fast as this pairing business is doing, only
Yeah,
because pairing is like positioning themselves from a marketing perspective as an alternative to dating apps. So they're basically inserting themselves into the same category as dating apps. And yeah, it blows my mind, like the creativity behind that and just like the market penetration, like seeing that opportunity in the market is just brilliant to me.
yeah. I mean, and I don't think about as like I think the ringer sum that they're using. I think that's just like something that customers they want to get the money for what they're paying because that's one challenge, right? Like people don't like to pay for software; they like to pay for things. Like it's okay for you to pay $50 on something, but you're gonna get like the actual thing, but you don't want to pay $2.99 for a subscription, whatever, on any apps, right? That's how we think. So I don't think the service they are selling it's basically like the ring in itself, the rubber thing. They're basically selling you the option to match with other people and that whole community and then like promoting you like you hold that and it means something, right? Like that's what the service that you're getting. It's basically that. Like the ring is just like a way for you to transform that into like money, like at the $25 or so. And like we do that a lot as well. Like we sell you like I think like we try to do that over the years is like, how can we send you physical stuff when you're paying us thousands of dollars? Because you pay us, you get the software, you get the customer support, but you don't get any feeling. So I think that's why people send the swag. Like we have a lot of swag that we send to our clients just so they like become a client. They can touch the company, they can touch the product with their hands. I get this feeling I think is really important on B2C, like to touch the product with your bare hands and have like, oh, like I bought InEvent now, so I can touch the InEvent product. Like I think that's a feeling that a lot of people have. I don't know. That's my thought on that.
Yeah, for sure. Pedro, this was an awesome episode. I really enjoyed having you. I'd love to have you
Thank
back
you.
in the future if you're interested. Any closing, like, do you want to plug anything before we close out here today, or anything you want to close on?
Uh, well, if I can say anything is entrepreneurial idea, like keep pushing forward. It's really nice. But if you're ever out there and you want to connect. I'm available on LinkedIn. I post some thoughts there every week or so when I'm not trying to not traveling or anything. Like I'm always there on LinkedIn, so we can connect there. And thank you very so much. And it was a pleasure to be here, and I like the ideas. And yeah, it was just awesome to be here on this podcast today. Yeah.
Likewise. Yeah, we'll put your LinkedIn in the show notes for anybody listening that wants to go and connect to Pedro. Links in the show notes. But Pedro, awesome. Have a great week.
You too. Thank you.
Cash flow? Did you clear your cash flow?